What is going on, everybody? This is Let's Be Frank, episode 15, with your host, your friendly neighborhood bull, Frank Mattis, brought to you by the Old City Sports Network. And I know it's been a while. I know it's been a minute. I've been super swamped with work, but I'm here, and boy, do I have a lot to talk about. Um, I call this show "Let's Be Frank" for a reason because I'm quite frank about all things Philadelphia sports. It's time to get frank about two sports teams in the city of Philadelphia that, quite frankly, have been a complete and utter disaster so far this season in their respective sports. That being the Philadelphia 76ers and the Philadelphia Flyers. I'll talk a little Eagles, but I'll save that to the end to end on a positive note because there's a lot of good things there. But unfortunately, I can't say the same thing about the Sixers and Flyers. Um, let's get started with the Sixers. Where do I begin? I mean, who needs Days of Our Lives and General Hospital when you have the greatest soap opera on the planet right now, that being the Philadelphia 76ers? Where do I even begin? Let's start with Monday. So Monday comes around and Shams reports that Joel Embiid is doubtful with an illness. I see this. I go scorched earth on Instagram. I mean, when you factor in all that's been said about Joel, all that's been said about the team, and what the fans and the media and the radio stations are saying about Joel Embiid, and you're going to sit out due to an illness? Are you kidding me? After all the things that you've gone through this year and all the things that have been said, you're really going to sit out with an illness? And I went scorched earth on Instagram. Um, reshared the story from Shams. And I'm like, well, here we go again with this guy. And then it turns out he's going to play. And I'm thinking two things. Either somebody in the organization said, bro, you got to get your ass out there, suck it up. We're a complete laughing stock right now. We got to flip the script on the season and we got to start winning. Or Joel decided to take it upon himself to put his big boy pants on and change the narrative. So I'm thinking, okay, credit to you, Joel. Going from doubtful to playing. I don't think you should have sat out to begin with, or you should have been doubtful with an illness, but you're playing, good for you. And then the game comes around and they're up 20 points against the Heatles. And I'm thinking, okay, we got something here. This is actually going to be the turning point of the season. Jarrett McCain is killing it. Um, Joel and George were okay during the game, but they're winning. They're doing what they have to do. And you're thinking, okay, well, now that, all that BS with the injuries and Joel, that's going to be behind us. We're going to get a good statement win against the Heatles in Miami. And now this is where the turnaround begins. Nope. Nope. They proceeded to get blown out by the Heat, and Joel and George do not do anything of significance in that game. And they lose in an embarrassing fashion. So you're thinking, oh, well, same old Sixers, I guess. And then we come to find out they had this team meeting. And in this team meeting, Tyrese Maxey calls out Joel Embiid for being late to everything, according to Tyrese Maxey. And you're thinking, well, that kind of checks out because everyone's, questioning Joel Embiid and his commitment. And it makes a lot of sense that, he's been tardy, or you can kind of infer that that's part of the problem because explain his lack of commitment. I mean, it's very obvious. And, a part of me is like, this team is a mess. This team is just a complete disaster. The greatest soap opera on the planet right now. But you think to yourself, okay, Maxey's coming back on Wednesday. He's going up against the Grizzlies without Ja Morant. We're finally going to see the big three together, and everything's going to change. Everything was brought to the table at this team meeting. What everything that needed to be said was said, and we can put it behind us. The big three is back. We have an opportunity to go into Memphis, in which they don't even have Ja Morant. We're going to make a statement, and we're going to turn the season around. That doesn't happen, and they proceed to lose. to a Memphis team without John Morant, their best player. Joel looked great. He put up 35 points. I got no complaints there. Um, I would think that he's going to turn it up a notch going forward. But you see Tyrese Maxey put up 8 points, and I know he's coming back from injury, but you got to give me double-digit points. You can't give me 8 points. You're young enough. You're spry enough. You can get me double-digit points. And yeah, just not great. But the biggest takeaway from this game was Paul George. Paul George re-aggravates his knee, and the big three that we were all waiting for, that we were clamoring for this entire offseason, only plays 24 minutes together. And they proceed to lose. And boy, I don't know if it's going to get much better. I really don't know if it's going to get much better. You look at this team, you look at Paul George. Clearly the guy is on his last leg, literally. I would not expect him to be that much of an impact if he can't stay healthy. It looks like this is going to be a nagging thing all year long, and we're going to have to rely on Joel Embiid and Maxey and McCain, who, by the way, can we stop with the whole, oh, the guy is enamored with TikToks and the painted nails? I don't give a crap. I don't give a shit. If he wants to paint his nails, shit. I know Wicked's coming out tonight, tomorrow, or whatever. If he wants to dress up like Ariana Grande and act as Glinda and sing Popular on TikTok, have at it, my guy. If you produce, you could do whatever you want. You could say whatever you want. You could paint your nails any color you want. That guy gets it. That guy's been the only silver lining of this team. And if I'm Kyle Lowry, I would mind my own business and not be worried about what the young guys are doing. Because if you're going to put up goose eggs, given where you are at in your career, shut. Who are you to say anything about these young guys? Because you're washed, my guy. Listen, you're a Cardinal Doherty alum, Philadelphia guy. You came home. Great. It's a great way to end your career. It's over. Don't you dare say anything about these young guys. Who are you to say anything anymore? I know you've had a great career, but you're washed, and you're in no position to say anything about any of these guys, because at least Jared McCain's going out there and producing. So I mean, I don't want to hear anything about the old men yelling at the clouds saying what these guys ought to do. He produces, you don't, and I honestly don't even I honestly don't even think he should be playing in the NBA anymore. He's that bad. So enough about that. As far as the team goes, I mean, at 2-12, I know it's early, but they dug themselves a hole, and I don't know if they're going to get out of it, to be honest with you, in terms of becoming a viable playoff team, a team that's actually going to contend for a title. I mean, they in the East, even though it's better, I mean, they probably will get into the playoffs. They, with Joel, playing at a good level, playing at a high level, excuse me, really starting to ramp things up a bit. I do think at the very least, what we saw Wednesday night, I think that that's a positive going forward. We'll see, with his injury history. Um, you know, I know Max is coming back from injury, but I need to see more than 8 points. I mean, I guess I'll give him a mulligan, so to speak, but when he starts ramping up, I think that they will be in a much better position. Jared McCain has been, like I said, the only silver lining to this team. You'll get what you get out of Paul George. I don't know if it's going to be much, and it's funny, because a lot of people, wanted to, kick Tobias Harris to the curb, and I get it. That last game in the playoffs, unforgivable, no points, but I think it's funny that Tobias Harris is outperforming Paul George on the Pistons. I think that's just absolutely hilarious. My whole thing with Tobias Harris was this: the guy was an absolute professional. Um, I've talked to some people inside, or that are with the media that speak very highly of him. They've got nothing but good things to say about him. And listen, he was overpaid. There's no question about it. But he was a lot better than people think. And then when you see people like Joe Giglio talk about how he hates him more than Ben Simmons. It's like, dude, what did you expect from Tobias Harris? Like he's not a franchise altering guy. He's a solid third piece. I think he deserved a lot of I didn't think he deserved a lot of blame. Because he was what he was. Granted, that last game is, like I said, is unforgivable. But I think, I honestly would take Tobias Harris over what we're getting from Paul George at this point. So I would appreciate if people put a little bit more respect on his name. Um, because it's not necessarily all his fault that, in years past, Ben Simmons, passed the rock when he had an open shot or an open layup, or Joel Embiid putting up 15 points in a game 7, or James Harden putting up 9 points in a game 7. It's not his fault. That the seasons ended the way they did, but last year was pretty bad. So I can't defend that, but I will say I will take Tobias Harris over Paul George, given what we're getting from Paul George or lack thereof, because that guy's washed at this point, and I don't know what we're gonna get from him. So yeah, I don't know, man. I just don't know. I mean, this team has just been an absolute nightmare, and a complete laughing stock, and the most ardent, diehard Sixers fans that absolutely love this team, that, believe it or not, put the Sixers over the Eagles and the Phillies and the Flyers. I would say on average, most people in terms of like their fandom rankings in Philadelphia go Eagles, Phillies, Sixers, Flyers. I'm an Eagles, Phillies, Flyers, Sixers guy. But there are some people that put the Sixers number one, and I really feel bad for those fans. And they've defended this team through thick and thin. They've defended the process, and they got nothing to say now. And I honestly feel bad for them. And there's been talks about tanking for flag. I mean, what are we talking about here? We're really going to go through the process all over again. We're going to do a process 2.0. I'm sorry. I'm not doing it again. I can't do it again. I don't think this fan base can do it again. And that is what it is. What it is right now. Like I said, I do think that they'll get into the playoffs, but do I think that they're going to get over the hump this year with Paul George being where he is right now with his health, and who knows with Joel Embiid, But you do have Maxey coming back. You do have Jarrett McCain. I don't know, man. I think it's going to be same old come the postseason. So that's what I have to say about the soap opera that is the Philadelphia 76ers. And as far as another team that disappoints, let's talk about the Flyers, because I got a lot to say about them as well. Got to be honest with you. I got to be honest with you about the Philadelphia Flyers. I'm tired of waiting. I'm tired of waiting. I'm tired of waiting for the future to be now, and it's just not coming. Uh, I'm really tired of not scoring goals. I'm really tired of not having a consistent defense, and a defense that's good on all levels. And it's not a mixed bag where you got some really good players and then you got some really bad players who are unplayable, but you don't have the depth. And I'm tired of the lack of stability in goaltending. Granted, I'll give them somewhat of a mulligan because of the Carter Hart situation, but it's really not ideal right now. And you know what I'm really sick and tired of? Not having any cap space. That's what I'm really sick and tired of. When is this future going to happen for the Flyers? Like when is this team going to actually produce? Because I hate to break it to you, I don't know about this team, to be honest with you. I know they're a young team, but they've always been a young team, and you can't just bank on these young guys carrying the team to the promised land. It's just, as good as Matvey Michkov is, and he is very good, and I'm very impressed with him, he needs help. Guys like Travis Konechny need help. And here's the truth about a guy like Travis Konechny, who I absolutely love. I love watching him play. I love watching him produce as far as his goal score is concerned. I love the fire that he has. I love the fact that he's willing to get in your face, and he's willing to scrap. Me personally, I thought he should have been named the captain for the Flyers, but I'm not going to lose sleep over Sean Couturier becoming captain or being the captain. He is the longest tenured Flyer. He plays two-way hockey. That's what you want in a captain. I'm not going to lose sleep over it, but I did think that last year Travis Konechny took it upon himself to be that guy. But here's the thing about Travis Konechny. Everybody in the NHL has a Travis Konechny on their team. Everybody. And if Travis Konechny is your number one guy, you're not winning shit in the NHL. I'm sorry, you're not. And when you look at the teams in the NHL, the good teams, they have at least two. And you look at the elite teams and the teams contending for a Stanley Cup, they have at least 3, 4, sometimes 5. If Travis Konechny was on a Stanley Cup winning team, he would probably be the fourth, maybe third option. And when he's your number one guy and Michkov's your number two guy, and he's got a very promising future, and I'm not throwing shade at the guy, that is simply just not enough. What they have is not enough. And the problem with the Flyers is that, and this is just my opinion, they are a it's really not, I mean, it's kind of really not opinion, it's kind of obvious, but technically it's my opinion. They are a middle of the road team on the outside looking in with no cap space. That is the worst position to be in the NHL. The worst position to be in the NHL. You either obviously want to be a Stanley Cup contending team that's always going to give you a shot at winning the cup, or you want to be one of the worst teams in which you can acquire cap space or excuse me, acquire assets and offload guys that have value to open up cap space. Flyers don't have that. I saw an article on ESPN Plus about the future rankings in the NHL. The Flyers are ranked 30th. And in large part, that had to do with the fact that they don't score goals and they have no money. And it feels like they have not had money for over a decade now. And it's unacceptable and it needs to change. They've become so beholden to their farm system and their young guys. And I'm not saying that that's not a bad philosophy, but you need to have a balance of young guys from, in your core to a team that is or you need to have a young core guys that are homegrown along with stud players in the NHL. Talent's talent, and the Flyers don't have enough of it. And there's only so much that John Tortorella can do. And you know, I when you look at the way this team is constructed, they either overpay their young guys that they see promise in and they immediately give them the bag, Shane Gostisbehere, or they finally get a in their eyes a decent blue liner and they want to keep him forever, Andrew McDonald, and they overpay for these guys and now they're in cap hell. And they got a bunch of guys under these, long-term deals that shouldn't have got these deals and they're stuck and they can't go out and acquire talent. And again, I'm not against building a homegrown core of guys. I think that's the way you do it. But you need talent. You need to have other guys you need a superstar. They don't have a superstar player. Mitch Koff is not a superstar yet. He could be. We're all banking on him to be, but he's not there yet. Travis Konechny is not a superstar. He's a very good player and a player that I want on my team. But they don't have the horses. Period. End of story. And they need to change that philosophy. And they need to find a way to free up cap space. Because this whole thing about it's all about the young guys, it's very problematic when some of them don't pan out. Guys like Nolan Patrick don't pan out, right? And you trade away guys like Ivan Provorov. And you're putting all the pressure in the world on a guy like Matvei Michkov. Now, granted, I'm kind of part of the problem. I look at him as a savior to a degree, but you watch this team and even knowing that he can be great and be a superstar, he needs more. Like, I mean, look at a team like Edmonton, like Connor McDavid's playing with other Hart trophy winners. You need talent that you can't just bank on one guy. Sidney Crosby needed Evgeny Malkin, right? Like what are we talking about here? Like Eric Lindros, he needed Leclaire and and Renberg. Like, you cannot just win it on your own. Like, that's just not going to happen. You need a deep team with about four. You need like three Travis Konechny's and two superstars in a lot of cases, and obviously goaltending, which is something that they don't have, and consistent blue line play. Um, they do not utilize their resources properly, and this is something that pains me to say. They're kind of like the Dallas Cowboys of the NHL. They're a big brand. They bank on that brand, but they haven't produced a championship. And they become so beholden to their own homegrown core that they're willing to overspend for them, and they have no money to spend on guys in the open market or trade for guys. And that's just it's a sad reality. But that's what I see in the Flyers. And I know there'll probably be some people, on this network even that disagree with me. And I'm happy to come on their show and talk about it, but I'm tired of waiting. I'm really tired of waiting on the Flyers to be great. And the city of Philadelphia is tired of waiting on the Flyers to be great, because it feels like we've been waiting for this youth movement to take stride and to take shape. It's just not really happening. Again, it's a young season, a lot can turn around, but from what I see, they just don't have the horses, and we're banking way too much on Mitch Coffin and Konechny. And yeah, when you don't have cap space and you're on the outside looking in, it's not a good spot to be. It's hockey purgatory. But that's just my opinion on the Flyers. And I'm tired of waiting. Period. End of story. Before I get into the Eagles, I want to let you guys know about our sponsor, Warlord Beard Oil. If you go to warlordbeardoil.com and you use the promo code Old City Sports, you will get 15% off site wide. And if you spend $65 or more, you will get free shipping. Again, that is warlordbeardoil.com. Use that promo code Old Sports for 15% off site wide. And if you spend $65 or more, you will get free shipping. So let's end on a positive note, a bit of a palate cleanser, so to speak. The Eagles. Um, Obviously a great win last Thursday against the Commanders. You know, I I don't necessarily, be honest with you, I don't necessarily care how that game, how they would have won that game if they would have won on a short week against a good divisional foe, a team that's going to be in the mix for quite some time, and the biggest problem for the Eagles going forward, because you obviously don't see it with the Cowboys and the Giants, to get a win against a division foe like that is great, regardless of how you get it. And some of the key takeaways: this Eagles defense, man, is for real. There's no question about it. They confused Jaden Daniels. They contained Jaden Daniels. Definitely one of his worst games of his young career. Just a tremendous job by Vic Fangio. I mean, Zach Bond, what a revelation he's been at the linebacker position. He's just been outstanding. He's playing at an all-pro level. Just a phenomenal story. Again, do not let that guy walk. If you gotta spend $10 million or more, have at it. Spend it. He deserves it. You can't get complacent. You can't ham and egg at that position. Um, he's just been incredible. Jalen Carter has been playing solid, consistent, I shouldn't say solid, dominant, consistent football. He's playing at a high level, the level that we all thought he could play. I love it. He's a game wrecker, and he's going to be a problem for many years to come. Jordan Davis, I thought, had one of his better games. Uh, Terry, not so scary. McLaurin didn't really do much, and that's because we have a future great corner in Kenyon Mitchell. How good is Kenyon Mitchell? I mean, this guy just shuts down everybody, and he is going to be a force in this league. Just a great game by him. He just continues to impress. And when you factor in him, you factor in Cooper DeJean, and then Jalen Carter, the way he's been playing, you know, I really don't want to hear any criticism about how Howie can't draft or at least draft defensively because that guy's hit a home run the last 2 years with those three guys: Jalen Carter, Kenyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean. And when you look at the way that this team is constructed, and you look at the core that they have, obviously Lane, BG, AJ Brown, guys like Devontae, those, Jalen Hurts, Saquon Barkley, they obviously got in free agency, Dallas Goddard. A lot of those guys, how we drafted. And the guys that he drafted the last 2 years in Carter, Mitchell, and DeJean. And when you look at his overall body of work, what I'm about to say is a bit of a hot take, but I think if you actually look at this, I think there's a lot of validity to it. I think Howie Roseman's going to make the NFL Hall of Fame someday, and I'll explain to you why. When you look at the way that Super Bowl team was built in 2017, when you had the core that they had. Now, granted, a lot of that was Andy Reid in terms of Brandon Graham and Jason, Brandon Graham and guys like that. But when Howie took over, like when he became like the guy, like in around like 2011, I would say, or technically it was 2010. Like he definitely had some influence on that. But even if you want to give Reed credit for, BG, Kelsey, and Cox, you can. But Howie definitely was in on that. He also was in on Lane Johnson and Zach Ertz, who were a huge key. And then when you factor in, acquiring Wentz, bringing back Nick Foles, and a lot of that 2017 team, if you remember, you had that core I just mentioned of Graham, Kelsey, Cox, Lane, Ertz, and then you had Carson Wentz, and then you go out and you sign guys like Malcolm Jenkins, and then you sign guys like Alshon Jeffrey to help Wentz get to the next level. You sign guys like Patrick Robinson, Chris Long, Corey Graham, guys like that. Make a trade for Ronald Darby. At least for that year, he was productive. You got to give credit to Howie for that. And then you look at the way that this team is constructed. You look at like when they had to pivot off of Wentz and they had to let go. They part ways with Doug Peterson. Howie Roseman was under a lot of pressure, but he goes out, he drafts Devontae Smith. He goes out and drafts Landon Dickerson, who's an absolute beast. And then they acquire AJ, and he obviously drafted Hurts, which was kind of a taboo move, but turned out to be a good move in the long run. And then you factor in guys like I said, you bring in AJ, you bring in Barkley, you draft guys like Cam Jurgens, who was just absolutely dominant on Thursday night. And then you bring in guys like or you draft guys like Carter, you draft guys like Kenyon Mitchell, you draft guys like Cooper DeJean to go along there. Jordan Mailata, hidden gem. Dallas Goddard, when healthy, is a great player. Josh Sweat, one of the more underrated players in the league. I mean, these are all Howie guys. And the point I'm trying to make is this is the best roster in the NFL. And Howie Rose, this team, it is kind of a Super Bowl or bust team in a lot of ways. And even if they don't win it this year, they're built for the long haul. They're not just like this is our last shot, this is our last dance. This team is going to be good for a while, and that's because of Howie Roseman. And Howie Roseman, you know, I mean, he built that 2017 team, then he built that 2022 team, and now he's building this 2024 team and beyond. And obviously, what he's been tremendous in terms of managing the cap. He's been tremendous in terms of acquiring talent like AJ Brown. He's been great in bringing in free agents like Saquon Barkley, and even guys like Zach Bond. Finding guys on the cheap, and then he's throughout his career he's been a mixed bag on the draft. Um, you know Marcus Smith. That obviously wasn't a great pick. Danny Watkins, like we know, like Andre Dillard, right? Jalen Rager, like he's had some misses, but he's had some hits, like Devontae, uh, Landon Dickerson, Milton Williams, and then now you got guys like um, Cam Jurgens and Jalen Carter and Cooper DeJean and Kenyon Mitchell, and Howie deserves credit for that. And I think you can make an argument he's a Hall of Famer. He's had multiple teams that he's had to build up, and he's put us in a really good spot. He's put us in a good spot now, and he's put us in a good spot in the future. So I just wanted to get that out of the way. And then as far as the offense is concerned, the Eagles' offensive line took over that fourth quarter. Absolutely dominant. Uh, Cam Jurgens, you know, it's like I'm seeing Jason Kelsey 2.0. The guy moves at a high level. He moves very well. The way he blocks downfield, and just throwing guys around, he's been incredible. Um, can we call Saquon Barkley the Mariano Rivera of the NFL? He is the best closer in all of the NFL. Just tremendous stuff from him. He just continues to put together an MVP season. Um, when you got that Eagles offensive line breathing down your neck, and then you got Saquon Barkley, may God have mercy on your soul, because they're going to take over the fourth quarter, and they took over the fourth quarter, and they basically said, "Daddy's home," because they just completely dominated and put that game away. As far as Jalen Hurts is concerned, he was shaky early. I think he was probably concussed from the hit he took early on in that game. He missed a wide open AJ Brown on the sideline, something he doesn't usually miss. And he was kind of shaky early on, but he got his wits together. He was moving the chains with his arm, with his legs, and it's been said about Jalen Hurts. He's not going to throw for 4,000 yards and 30 plus touchdowns. Guess what? He doesn't have to. If we get 2022 Jalen Hurts and he finds ways to win, and he does it with his arm and his legs, he doesn't have to throw for a bunch of yards and a bunch of touchdowns. He just needs to do what he's doing in this winning streak. And I don't have a problem with what Jalen Hurts did. I thought he was efficient, all things considered, especially in the second half. And I think people need, I say it ad nauseum. A lot of people like to overreact with the quarterback play, and they see the weapons and they expect Jalen Hurts to throw a bunch of yards and a bunch of touchdowns. And he doesn't need to do that with the talent that he has. If he can just land the plane, do what he did in 2022, and do what he's been doing on this winning streak, I got no complaints with Jalen Hurts. I thought he was fine. Um, there are some there is a concern with Jake Elliott. He did not obviously have a great game, and it's interesting. I was working with a guy who went to the game on Thursday, and he was there early on, and he was seeing Jake Elliott kick field goals in pregame, and he was missing a lot. So I don't know if it's a problem, with just not getting a lot of opportunities, or he has the yips. But that is concerning. He was, he's been tremendous. He's been a great story with the Eagles. Uh, and he's a guy that a lot of people like, and I don't want to see him, in a situation where he looks like Justin Tucker, because Justin Tucker doesn't look right now. And hopefully that was just a bad game by Jake Elliott. Hopefully it was one of those things where he just hasn't got the opportunities. But he did kind of settle in late in the game, so hopefully he can build off of that. And then lastly, I'm not one to complain about the refs, but the refereeing in that game was absolutely atrocious. They missed at least 2 to 3 face masks, just horrible stuff. And the 2-point conversion, which credit to Zach Ertz, shout out to him. He made a tremendous play. That shouldn't have been a 2-point successful conversion, because BG was held in that game. Just not a great game there. I'm not one to complain about the refs, but it was just so egregious that, I needed to mention it. So those were the takeaways there. On to the Rams Sunday night. I won't sleep. I'm not sleeping on this team. I'm not sleeping on the Rams. They sit at 5-5, and the Eagles are looking really good right now, but the Rams are, I think they're peaking at the right time. They're healthy. They got Puka Nacua going. They got Cooper Kupp going. They have a formidable backfield with Blake Corum. Matthew Stafford, when he's on, is arguably the best quarterback in the NFC. And Sean McVay is one of the best coaches in the NFL. Whether he's got, the horses or not, he's always going to coach these guys up. And I think this defense that they have, guys like Jarrett Verse, on their defensive line, are really peaking at the right time. Their numbers are kind of middle of the road, but this defense, I think, is going to ascend and really help out the Rams going forward. And the line is Eagles -2.5. It's kind of interesting. I think the Eagles are clearly the better team, but that line kind of tells me that the Rams are no joke, and they're not. They're not. They're no joke as long as Sean McVay's there, and as long as they're healthy, they got a shot, and they absolutely have a shot in this division. I do think the Eagles are a better team, but I will not sleep on the Rams. But it's just something to think about because I feel like from what I've been hearing, I don't really hear a lot of people talking about this upcoming matchup. I think it's a better, tougher matchup than people think. The Eagles are obviously playing very well. They're one of the better teams in the NFL, and everyone's talking about the potentially inevitable matchup between the Eagles and the Lions, and I get it. Those are two of the, without question, the best teams in the NFC. I think the Lions look right now the best team in the NFL. They really don't have a lot of weaknesses, especially offensively. They've played more consistent offensive football than the Eagles have. Um, they have a quarterback in Jared Goff. Say what you want about the guy. He's playing like a top 5 quarterback. They have the best running back situation in the NFL. I didn't say best running back. Obviously, guys like Saquon Barkley and Derrick Henry will have something to say about that. But Jamar Gibbs, David Montgomery, the best 1-2 punch in the NFL. They have arguably the best possession receiver in the NFL in Amon-Ra St. Brown and a home run hitter in Jameson Williams. When he's on the field, he's dynamite. And when Sam Laporte is healthy, he's a top 5 and sometimes top 3 tight end. And then, as far as offensive line goes, I might give them the edge over the Eagles in terms of offensive lines, but it is close. I mean, the Eagles, might have something to say about that given the way they played in the fourth quarter and how they took over games. But I think the Lions have been the best team in the NFL, and it seems like they're the biggest obstacle to the Eagles. So a lot's been said about that potential matchup. But make no mistake about it, the Rams are no joke. As long as Sean McVay's the head coach, as long as Matthew Stafford's healthy, as long as they got the receivers and that defense, you know, um, starts to come along, it's going to be a tough game. I think it's going to be a tougher game than people think. But I do think the Eagles win. I think they win around like 28-24 maybe. Um, because they have a pretty, balanced offense. And, Matthew Stafford is a tremendous quarterback and he can sling it like no other. So it's going to be an interesting test for the Eagles defense. And I think they're going to be they're going to be a much tougher team than or a much tougher test than you think. So definitely do not sleep on the Rams, but I do think the Eagles ultimately get it done. LA is not, a great home field advantage for any LA team, whether it's the Rams or the Chargers. Um, it's kind of a weird fan base. It's a weird market, but I definitely think that the Eagles fans will show up for that for sure. So it'll kind of take away and minimize the home field advantage, so to speak. And I just think the Eagles are a better team, and I think they'll get it done. But it's going to be a tough game. So that's that. Definitely an eventful podcast. There's no question about it. I had to be frank. No, or pun intended in a lot of ways, or pun intended for sure in terms of the Sixers and the Flyers because I mean the Sixers have been just a complete mess and just a nightmare of a season so far. The Flyers, I'm tired of waiting, but hopefully the Eagles can continue to play well and carry the load for the teams in Philadelphia. So it's quite the time to be a Philadelphia sports fan. There's a lot of good and there's a lot of bad. So that's going to be it. I plan to be around a little bit more. I've been busy with work, but I'm glad I got this in. I'm glad I got what I needed to get off my chest, and hopefully the Sixers and the Flyers turn it around. It is early in the season, but it's